And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking all the news coming out of the Canadian Grand Prix, all of the fallout. The Russell protest kind of ended up being nothing, didn't it? But why? The Lando Norris hitting a teammate but not getting a penalty point. What on earth is going on in Formula One? We need some consistency. Yeah, well, don't come here on a Sunday. All that and a bit more. So here are the driver standings. We have Oscar Piastri leading, as you will, the Drivers' Championship with a slightly more because of what Lando Norris did, extended gap, who's at 176 points. Max Verstappen third on 155. George Russell catching up a tiny bit, isn't he? On 136. Then Leclerc on 104, Hamilton on 79. And new podium man, Kimi Antonelli on 63. Next up, you've got Alexander Albon, best of the rest. I mean, massive thumbs up on 42. Ocon on 22, Hadjar on 21. Now, when we look at the Constructors' Championship, it's changed a tiny bit because now Mercedes is ahead of Ferrari after their stellar weekend, but it's still McLaren very much in control on 374. 199, though, for Mercedes, 183 for Ferrari, 162 for Red Bull. Then you have some kind of Mariana Trench gulf between Red Bull Racing and Williams on 55 points, over 100 points. Haas on 28 in 6th. 7th Racing Bulls on 28. They've fallen behind Haas, the same points, but I think different positions. 22 for Aston Martin, 20 for Kick Sauber, and 11 for Alpine. But one of the big talking points, obviously, is Lewis Hamilton hitting, very, very sadly, hitting the Groundhog. Yeah, his right floor fence detached from the car after taking damage, and he lost supposedly between 0.2 and 0.5 seconds a lap. I don't think we can pick. Yeah, when you kind of just about see that on the floor coming detached. So that, I mean, that's fairly significant, isn't it? This is footage of Lewis Hamilton actually hitting the Groundhog in Canada. Look at that. I mean, there it is. Yeah, it's there. Look, he's going to pause it. You can see it there. Bonk. Now, the rumour was, the rumour, I didn't see it happening, but the rumour was for Lewis Hamilton that someone had already hit the Groundhog and he already died, apparently. But as you know, Groundhogs aren't massively big. I mean, they're bigger than like your hamster and your rat. And the issue being is, even hitting something like that is going to have a massive effect on the floor, which obviously Hamilton hit one more time. Oh, it's just, it's just X-rated here, isn't it? It's just like a massacre. This was Hamilton's qualifying, which I thought was interesting. He's devastated, by the way.
But obviously, I heard I hit a groundhog, so that's devastating. So, like, I love animals.
I mean, you can see he's
sad about it.
Oh.
That's horrible.
Rest in peace, a groundhog.
That's never happened to me here before. So
I was almost.
With the floor, basically.
I was almost tempted. I'll just finish it off. I was almost tempted to do a Groundhog Day poster, but there we go. But sadly, we had a lot more to talk about. And so this was why the Groundhog Strike wrecked Hamilton's Canadian Grand Prix. As we know, it half a second a lap. So the impact with the Groundhog, from Ferrari's point of view, destroyed his hopes of getting a podium, because beforehand, he was looking quite good. On the hard tyre, it wasn't too bad. Hamilton, not on the hard tyre, on the medium tyre, sorry. It was Leclerc on the hard tyre. My apologies. Hamilton looked on course to fight for a strong finish. Absolutely he did. But it all went wrong. And it was lap number 12 on the run to the hairpin. The impact damaged Hamilton's floor, triggered a loss of performance that the 7-time world champion was initially unable to explain. And you heard it coming on. I don't know why my car is so bad. And Vassar said, it's true, we had a small kiss with the marmot. It was at the beginning of the first stint he damaged the floor. And they were saying something like 20 points of downforce. Now, hopefully, we didn't have a big change in balance, but it was a lot of performance. We sent flowers to the hope. Did they? Hamilton said that his Ferrari did not feel the same, obviously, after the Groundhog Strike, as he estimated about being a half a second off, which was kind of like, right, I was just slow. I was lacking a lot of performance. I think it was over half a second, so I was just going backwards, he said. Now, without the damage, Hamilton reckons he could have been on pace, on terms with someone like Oscar Piastri, who ended up finishing 4th after a super close fight. Could he have got a podium? We will never know. Maybe unlikely, but you never know how the race would have played out. If you remember, no one really thought Hamilton would have had decent pace in Imola initially, and towards either his middle or the end stint at Imola. It was absolutely amazing for Hamilton. It was a devastation. Let's now move on from one Groundhog Day to argue another Groundhog Day when it comes to penalties and inconsistencies. Yeah, it's like we're playing the same movie time and time again. Now, Christian Horner questions George Russell's objective behind this fresh Max Verstappen complaint. And if you have a look at our live video we did yesterday, George Russell allegedly brake-checked. I don't think he really brake-checked Max Verstappen, but braked under the safety car. So Max Verstappen will then go ahead of him, and George is like, "Ha! You went ahead of me, Max. You now get a penalty." And we even looked at it, and he did. To be fair to George, not to be fair to George. To be honest in relation to George, he did look in the mirror, and I thought that was quite naughty. But let's see what Christian Horner's got to say. He said the objective had been made reasonably clear from George Russell ahead of the incident. Asked by the media whether he felt Russell was trying to goad Verstappen. Obviously, goading Verstappen, Christian Horner did bring up the fact that George Russell's comments about "I've got more points to play with," and there we go. Now, explaining Red Bull's protest grounds, team boss Christian Horner said it's relating to the erratic driving behind the safety car. And the second protest is very clear: the distance was left behind the safety car that was well in excess. It looked to be in excess of 10 car lengths, which is naughty. And I think it was 3 times in excess of the permitted distance, so it's within our right to obviously protest that. We've 3 times the excess. Wow! So we've lodged the protest. It was with the stewards, and we see what they say. You can argue they may as well have tried it. On footage suggests that Russell had been monitoring his right mirror ahead of the break. Yeah, we saw that, but his victory was secured when the FIA stewards announced that neither Red Bull protest would be upheld. Interesting. And here we go. Why the Verstappen claim Russell dropped too far behind the safety car was wrong. But before we get into that, let's have a look at what the FIA said. On June the 15th, following the publication of the classification, obviously Red Bull claimed in its protest that the car driver number 63, George Russell, had breached Article 55.5 of the FIA Formula One sporting regulations by braking unnecessarily and erratically behind the safety car. It was arguably unnecessarily hard. I mean, it wasn't like he was going to have a collision with the safety car. I completely get that. And he also breached Article 12.2.1 of the FIA Sporting Code by complaining that the driver of car 1 had overtaken him under safety car conditions. The parties were summoned and heard. And on behalf of, none of the parties objected to the composition of the panel of the stewards. Admissibility, the stewards find that the protest is inadmissible or admissible as all requirements of Article 13 have been fulfilled. The hearing protest then proceeded. The claims of Red Bull claimed that during the safety car deployment of the driver car number 63 had braked unnecessarily, as we know. And he also dropped back more than 10 places. But the Red Bull had also alleged, this is point number 7, which is here, that by complaining over the team radio, car 1 had overtaken him under the safety car, which was naughty of George. The driver of car 1 said that he was taken by surprise by his sudden braking up. I imagine he was. And Red Bull tendered telemetry showing the throttle and brake application of each car. Now, Red Bull suggested it could be inferred from the fact that car 63 on board showed the driver looking through his mirrors, which he was. He knew that car number 1 was immediately behind, and he braked to force car to overtake. Red Bull suggested that the driver of car 63 complained about the overtake, knowing that he would be heard by the race director. Yeah. And they suggested that it must have been obvious for car 63 that the race would end under the safety car. The car driver 63 explained that periodic braking is commonplace. On the back of the straight, he found himself catching the safety car. I mean, George Russell, he braked where he did for 2 reasons, George apparently said. First, to ensure he kept a gap to the safety car. Secondly, to use temperatures on his tyres for the race that wasn't going to start. Weird. His telemetry showed that the brake pressure he applied was 30 psi, which he said was not severe. No. The car driver ought to have anticipated. Should he have anticipated? I don't know. And 14, Mercedes submitted that the driver of car 63 had said over the team radio was nothing other than factual. Yeah, come on. Mercedes also obviously showed their telemetry. Conclusions. Now, having regarded to the evidence of Mr. Malon, so Mr. Malon explained that the incident had been observed by the race control team and assessed to not warrant being reported. We are not satisfied that by simply reporting to his team car 1 had overtaken that engaged in unsportsmanlike conduct, and even though the protest did not allege it, we are also satisfied by the braking. And I mean, I'm very quick, as you probably know, to call out Max Verstappen, but I think. I do think it's slightly inconsistent there, simply because George did look in his mirrors and he did appear to be like 10 car lengths behind, too far behind the safety car. So this is from race fans and why George wasn't penalised by dropping too far. Max Verstappen repeatedly accused George Russell of breaking the rules. Russell was penalised for that very infraction at the Qatar Grand Prix last year, where he received a 5-second penalty. But according to the stewards, Verstappen's claims did not form part of Red Bull's attempt to overturn Russell's victory by the protest. The reason is clear. Verstappen was mistaken. Russell may have dropped more than 10 car lengths behind the safety car, but he was permitted by the regulations. Okay. Weird. Verstappen repeatedly accused Russell of falling too far behind the safety car. This is obviously the radio talk. But Russell's onboard camera showed at least 2 occasions where he dropped back and then caught up. On both occasions, he alerted Mercedes to the fact that the delta time had changed because the sector they're driving through is under yellow flags. Okay. And the safety car was triggered in response to Lando Norris crashing on the pit straight. Race control chose to send the pack through the pit lane, and that's where Russell slowed down. The gap between him and the safety car opened up. Okay, so yeah, fair enough. And that kind of explains it. I still think the mirrors, come on. So George Russell's Canadian Grand Prix win. And Motorsport saying it's very embarrassing the fact that it took, 5 hours and 30 minutes to actually decide, which I completely agree. And they're saying here, incredibly, in a world of high-definition video cameras integrated into car parts, real-time sensors, GPS trackers, AI technology, and the sophisticated FIA remote operation centre, it still took that long. Yeah, that is absolutely embarrassing. And by the time the verdict was delivered, the FIA motorhome was desolate and the organisation staff had left the circuit. Perhaps it was fortunate that Red Bull's protest alleging Russell drove erratically behind the safety car was not upheld. We did say in the video we didn't think it would be. The decision stood, official documents be printed, the matter was closed. Delay was embarrassing. Yes, it was. Ridiculous. Talking about ridiculous for some, Lando Norris. Excuse me. So, car 4 collided with car 81 on the start-finish straight, and they got a 5-second penalty, even though, yes, he was classified as a finisher, because if he wasn't, he could have got potentially a grid drop for the next race. So the stewards heard from car 4 and car 81. Car 4 was attempting to overtake car 81 on the main straight. He attempted to move to the left, but there was no space. The car, and car 81's Oscar Piastri, the driver of car 4, Lando Norris, said he thought there would be space, but he realised too late. Yeah, and obviously they collided. The stewards determined that the car 4, Lando Norris, was solely to blame for the collision. Good, because the collision had no immediate and obvious. But this is the thing. They've said time and time again, we don't look at the consequence. We look at actually what happened, but they do look at the consequence. Let's be honest. So they lie. They're lying when they say that. If they say that again, it's like they're lying because you're looking at the consequence as well. Which I understand, but just say that next time you've been interviewed. Like, this is an example. The stewards determined that car 4 was solely to blame. We impose a 5-second penalty, which doesn't mean anything. But why I'm surprised is why don't they give him at least 1 or 2 penalty points? I mean, the 3 they gave Max, I think was ridiculous. Max should have got 4 in the race ban. Yeah. But it wasn't Lando's fault. He caused a collision. Now, he could have destroyed Oscar's race as well by giving him a puncher. Maybe, but he didn't. Yeah, I don't know if I really agree with that. He should have at least got maybe like 1 penalty point at the very least, because now everyone's like, oh no, British bias. Waving, it's all about your passport. No, it isn't. It's all about anyone that says that is being absolutely ridiculous, because there's been so many times in Formula 1 where other people, for example, have been favoured. Remember the Ferrari International Aid years of 1999, the Malaysian Grand Prix. When they were kicked out of the championship because they had illegal barge boards, and that was a technical infringement, so that's like binary. It either is or isn't within the measurement, and they were out in 1999, but the FIA then threw them out and then allowed them in. And there are so many other examples that I can give. British bias? No, there is no. I don't think there's any British bias. I think people are just seeing what they want to see. What I will say, though, is the reason why people are saying there's British bias, or the reason why people are saying, oh no, Max Verstappen should have got a penalty, should have got more, is because of these inconsistent rules. We all said, you need the same stewards at the track all the time. And then we're going to get some element of consistency. Yes, Mohammed bin Salim's going to cry and whine about who's going to pay them. Well, the Formula 1 give you enough money, the FIA, you can pay them. I mean, if it wasn't for Formula 1, the FIA wouldn't be able to function as they are, because the amount of money that Formula 1 gives the FIA. Anyway, I digress. If you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That would be absolutely lovely. It would also help if I hit the right subscribe button. There we go. If you're already subscribed, just watching this or hitting that like button is more than enough for us. Thank you very much. We will speak to you soon. Our next F1 video is going to be the driver ratings, which will probably be out tomorrow, and we'll have our British Touring Car Championship preview of, I think it's Alton Park. Anyway, speak to you soon. Thank you very much, and stay safe.